folks here. What I want to tell you about is I'll talk to you about the life cycle of the monarch, of butterflies in general and the monarch, some conservation issues, and lastly what you can do to help conservation. So for butterflies in general, their life cycle in a couple of stages. The male and females will mate, and depending on the species, the mating could take place in just a matter of a few seconds to a couple of hours. It depends on the species. After they've mated, the female goes out to lay eggs, and she chooses particular plants. Every species of butterfly, generally speaking, has very specific plants to lay their eggs on. The monarch butterfly will only lay eggs on milkweed. In this area, there's two types of milkweed. There's swamp milkweed and there's common milkweed. You can probably buy tropical milkweed in some of the nurseries, but you really don't survive here. But the swamp milkweed is this milkweed here, and the common milkweed is this one. All right, there's quite a bit. And around this area, there's not much that I know of, but there is some. There's some across the river. Somebody had planted some, and there's a backyard full of it. If you go along railroad tracks, if you go in the riverfront in Moncton, on the trail, you'll see all kinds of milkweed. And if you go there in July, you'll see monarchs because they're after this milkweed. So they'll just lay eggs on these types of plants. So butterflies will choose particular plants to lay their eggs on because the caterpillars will only survive on those plants. If you took a monarch caterpillar off milkweed, you could put it on any other type of plant, it'll starve to death. It won't even try eating it, okay? Because it knows, it just won't eat it, all right? So the lady goes out and lays her eggs on the particular plant. Here for monarch, it's milkweed. In nice weather, hot weather, the eggs could hatch in as little as 3 days or as long as 10 days, depending on how warm or cold it is. For instance, the nights are quite cool. They're getting cool now. That would slow things down compared to July and early August. So you have the egg that now is closing, and every little egg has a little one little caterpillar will come out of the eggs. And first thing it'll do, usually will chew and eat the egg. It's a little shell. The eggs are shells. They're not. They're just like a bird egg. It's a little shell. It's not like frog eggs. It's not a jelly. It's a little egg. And there's really good pictures here you can look at. It eats that little thing, and then it starts right away chewing on the milkweed leaves. But before it does that, because it's a very small little caterpillar, all the caterpillars make silk. They have a spinneret. You'll see a little caterpillar moving its head. It makes a little bit of silk, not much, but it's enough to hang on to with their little legs. Then it'll chew a little hole in the leaf. If you have milkweed, you never saw a butterfly laying eggs or anything, but you see little holes in it. It could be another bug, but most of the time on milkweed, if you lift the leaf, you'll see that there's a little caterpillar there. All right, and all the butterflies, the caterpillars, they will molt. Like a lobster changes its cell to grow, caterpillars to grow, they molt 5 times. The 5th time, and every time it molts, it grows a little bigger. What it does essentially, it's eating, and then something inside itself says it can't grow anymore, so it stops eating, and then it makes a little bit of silk, hang on to that, and it crawls out of its old skin, and it starts pumping air. They breathe by their sides, by the way, there's little holes, little spiracles, like other insects, and they pump up a little bit to become bigger, and they eat and increase in size, and do that 5 times. The 5th time, instead of going to a bigger caterpillar, it crawls up, and for those, gently here, and it goes and it makes a patch of silk, and it hangs in there. The large caterpillar hangs in there, and hangs like a J. Okay, it takes about a day. It goes up there, makes about the end of the day. You might see it actually this afternoon. From that J, it's caught there. It's hung onto the silk. It can't move from there. It's very vulnerable because if there's an insect or a bird wants to eat it, it can't crawl away. It's caught there forever. It will molt the 5th time, and when it molts, it changes into a chrysalis. It doesn't make the chrysalis. Okay, it molts. it sheds its skin, and under its skin it forms the chrysalid. This is I got this printed at Walmart today, and it's the wrong color. That blue should be green. Sorry, it should be green. So form the egg, and the skin, it moves, and you can see it moving, and it'll shed its skin and form the chrysalid. Okay, and the chrysalid is down here, and you can after you can come closer and have a closer look. It's very beautiful. It looks like a little earring. There's gold specks on it. The scientists so far have not been able to determine why they make those little gold specks. In the tropical countries, some of the chrysalids, the whole chrysalid is gold, shiny. Some are silver, but these have little specks of gold on it. They form that chrysalid, and inside that chrysalid, the butterfly is developing. If you look at it closely, you can already see the shape of the wings and the body, even the eyes and so on. If you have a real closer look, but it's caught there. All right, it can't move. When it's time to emerge, it usually takes about 10 days, roughly, in nice weather. It could stretch longer. Now it would probably take more like 14 days because the nights are pretty cool. That chrysalid will open. What it does, the butterfly inside is ready to emerge. He'll pump air from the outside because the chrysalid breeds also. There's little spiracles. They're very hard to see, but they're there. He'll pump air, and it'll become bigger, and it'll crack open the chrysalid. He crawls out, and it really doesn't look like a butterfly right away because the wings are all shriveled up, and they're wet. The butterfly pumps air. In the wings, there's veins in its wings, so it pumps air and liquid from its stomach into the wings, and it forms the wings. It's pumping up the wings. They come down vertically, and at that moment, the wings, they're beautiful. They have all their scales. They're very bright as a butterfly because they haven't lost any scales, but their wings are very wet. They're like wet Kleenex. At that moment, you don't want to touch that butterfly because you could easily tear the wings. You can't move from there. You can't beat his wings. They're really wet. It doesn't take long, probably about 15-20 minutes, and the wings hardened up. He usually will stay there even a little longer and just dry his wings. And when he can feel his shoulders stiffening up because the body also is wet, but it hardens up, and he opens his wings just to try them out. You'll see him doing that. It's really quite beautiful. And now he knows he's ready. He's an adult. He can fly away. All right. Now, the monarchs are quite special because the ones that are born here, this butterfly is in here. Where'd he go? Oh, they're over here. Over there. That live butterfly, he was born here, and he's going to go to Mexico. All right. He's going to stick around and feed a bit, and he's going to go to Mexico. It takes about 2 months. To get to Mexico, they generally leave here on average in early September. Okay, there's two types of butterflies here. That large one is a monarch. So I'll talk about the monarch first, and I'll talk about that little one after. So this butterfly was born here. When he was born here at this time of the year, they don't develop their sexual organs. They don't reproduce. They just feed and build up fat to fly to Mexico. And it takes about 2 months. They only fly during the day, they land every night, and they roost in trees. So if you're down in the States, depending how far south you are, you can have hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of monarchs roosting in your yard in trees. Because they all congregate at night in the same place. They feed a little bit, get up again, and keep going. They really don't fly to Mexico. Fly up in the air, they get air currents, and they glide most of the way. Okay? They still get there. They get there at the end of October, around Halloween. And in Mexico, for them, it's a legend. But for them, I raise monarchs, and in early July, I'm waiting for the monarchs to arrive so I can catch a female and get some eggs. Okay, so I'm waiting for 1 or 2 or 3. In Mexico, they're waiting for millions of monarchs to arrive in the mountains there, and it's peasants, and they have a great big feast, All Saints Day. You know, we have Halloween. And
have you been down there?
Hey, no, but
it's on my bucket list.
It's on my bucket list. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so they get there and have a big feast. And for them, it's their deceased that are coming back to see them. It's a legend, but they have the cemeteries are full of flowers and candles, and they have music, and it's quite nice to see. You'll see, just go on the internet and you'll
What's their
see
lifespan again?
So that's the monarch. He's never been to Mexico, but he gets there, right? And they orient themselves with the sun. So they're going to fly southwest to get to Mexico, and Scientists have found that it's mainly the sun. That's how they orient themselves with, and they also have a little bit of magnet in their head, and the magnetic field also helps guide them to Mexico. So that's their sort of GPS type of thing. In this little cage here, you got the big monarch, and you have another one. It's called a mimic. It looks almost like a monarch. It's smaller, but if you look at it closely, not only the size, but the colors are exactly the same colors, except the hind wings have a black line in it. Hind wings, and you won't see that on the monarch. You would have to come and have a closer look. But a lot of people you will see, this is called a viceroy. You will see the viceroy in the spring. You see him in June, people see monarch. So people tell me they saw monarchs in May. I think you cannot have seen a monarch in May. You can't get here, all right? So you can come have a look after. They have a little black mark on the bottom. Now, so this guy's going to go to Mexico. He arrives there at the end of October. He stays there all winter. They overwinter in the mountains in big pines, Oyamel pine trees, huge pines, and they just congregate in there by the millions. And they stay there all winter till the month of March. And in March, they start leaving, just like we have birds here that migrate. Well, they migrate north. They start, and they don't all leave together, but they really leave millions at a time. They don't leave by 1 or 2 monarchs. Okay, so they start heading north. And the first place they hit is Texas. And in good years, like this year in Texas, they had good rains and warm weather, and the milkweed was up. So they stop in Texas, reproduce, lay their eggs. Female lays their eggs. The male will look for another female and mates, and she lays eggs, and the males and female die. Okay, so the ones coming back from Mexico, most of them will die around Texas or the states surrounding Texas. Dies. Now, so we'll call it the second generation, right? If we call this one the first one. So we'll call it the first generation, right? So if they're born, they take a month to change from the egg, caterpillar, chrysalid, butterfly, an adult. They reproduce, die, then the second generation heads north, does the same thing. For here, it's about the third generation. It's like a relay that gets here. So the butterflies that arrive here in July have never ever been here. Okay, it's the third generation, and their parents and grandparents, and some of the great-grandparents, because often here it's the fourth generation that makes it here, not the third one.
They live quite a while then, do they, sir?
Okay.
The monarch butterflies live for quite a few years?
No, the butterflies generally only live a couple of weeks.
Oh, a couple of weeks.
The butterfly, the adults that are born here, not only here, but in Quebec and Ontario and so on, that go to Mexico, they live about 9 months. So they leave here in September, they get there at the end of October, they start counting the months up until March, you're talking about 9 months. And then they reproduce and die.
Oh, wow.
But that next generation will reproduce and only live a couple of weeks. Same as all the butterflies from here. Most of the butterflies here will live only a couple of weeks. The butterflies you see, the ones that you might think live longer are the little yellow clouded sulfurs, the little yellow butterfly. You'll see them for months at a time. It's not the same butterfly, it's different generations. They reproduce several times here. But most butterflies only, as adults, will only live a couple of weeks. There's exceptions. You'll be here all afternoon with you if you want to know what the exceptions are.
Why do they live for 9 months when they are born here and fly there? Like, how do they get to live for 9 months?
Well, they don't hibernate like a bear or something. They go once they get to Mexico. Well, first of all, they do fly to Mexico. It takes 2 months.
Yeah.
So there's 2 there, but they land every night. They don't fly at night. They found them in air balloons, hot air balloons at 5,000 feet. So imagine, how high they can fly and find the air currents.
Yeah.
And they make it there in Mexico. It's quite cool there in the mountains. It's high up in the mountains, and they're essentially dormant. They're not really hibernating like some of the animals that we know, but they're dormant, so they're not using any. They're just sitting there and waiting for till the month of March. In some warm days, they will fly down and nectar a little bit on the flowers and get a little bit of water in some of the streams. They go back up and they just don't move there. Some of the monarchs, knowing that they can stand the cold. Some of the monarchs that I have here that we'll show you after, we're going to tag some of them, I put them in the fridge. Cool them. Doesn't hurt them. It just they go.
Makes them dormant.
Okay. When I take them out, I'll put them in your hand. They're going to sit there because the butterfly he can't fly if he's cold. He has to be warm. So it's not a. It's just a trick. Okay. Because they can stand the cold. I've kept some that were crippled. Some of them will come out of the chrysalis and fall, and their wings are misshaped. I've kept some from August to June the following year in the fridge. Take them out, feed them a little bit back in the fridge, so they can stand the cold for some reason. That's how they survive. Up in the
Same
mountains.
principle as a fly.
I'm sorry.
Same principle as a fly.
Yeah, that's right. In the spring they fly.
Yeah, I know.
Camp.
In the church
Put the
steeple,
stove-
they
yeah.
come alive.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, for conservation purposes, all right. You'll remember NAFTA that Trump didn't like and got rid of. But when they signed NAFTA, the logo that they adopted was the Monarch because of Canada, Mexico, and U.S. Right? The Monarch travels in those three countries. And at the time of signing, the only formal agreement, the first one, a concrete one, was that the three countries together would do something to protect the monarchs because they were in dire straits. But really nothing much happened in none of the countries.
He's got one on his
There's
head.
none in Europe.
Okay?
There's none in Europe. Monarch butterflies.
Oh, there's monarchs all over the world, by the way.
Yeah.
The species here is the eastern monarch, east of the Rocky Mountains. There are millions and millions of them that overwinter in Mexico. There's a western population, but you're talking a couple of 100,000. They're in dire straits also. They overwinter in California, but it's not the same population type of thing. I've seen monarchs in Africa. I've seen them in different countries. I've seen them in Costa Rica. They're everywhere, but they don't overwinter like these, and they're not abundant.
These are unique
Okay.
to this.
So,
Wow.
after NAFTA, they agreed to do stuff. They didn't do much. The Mexicans blamed essentially the United States mainly and Canada for agriculture that was get rid of a lot of the milkweed and the biophosphates that were killing the milkweed off, and they were planting corn to create ethanol. Anyway, the Mexican were saying it's the Americans and the Canadians that are not protecting enough milkweed for the butterflies. The Americans and to some extent also the Canadians would say it's the Mexicans. They're lumbering illegally the logs. It's a protected area, but there's all kinds of those big pines that are being cut, and they're overcutting the mountainside, and there's no place for them to overwinter. Or where there is, there's less space. In fact, both of them are very important and are causing a lot of problems for the monarchs. But there's been a lot of studies, because NAFTA's pretty old now, and the last studies essentially said that the main culprit, the main reason for the decline of the monarchs was the lack of milkweed, the decline in the abundance of milkweed in the Midwest, and to a certain extent in southern Ontario and in Quebec.
Is
Also the-
milkweed a perennial?
I'm sorry?
Is milkweed a perennial or just an annual?
It's a perennial. It's a perennial. But if you get rid of it altogether, if there's milkweed all over here and you get rid of it and plant corn, there's no more milkweed for the butterflies. So, and they would not only, it's understandable that you would, if you're going to plant corn, you can't have the milkweed there. But traditionally, there wasn't as much agriculture there was before, and they would leave the milkweed on the edges and so on. But in fact, these sprays with planes and everything would kill everything off, not just any weed, including the milkweed. So, but also the fact that they're cutting their logging in Mexico is causing a problem too. But finally, the countries are all doing their bit. It's improving a lot. This year has been a very, very good year for monarchs. What can you do for monarchs? Well, I encourage you to educate yourself on the monarch. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. There's books. But plant milkweed. Plant milkweed in your yard. Plant swamp milkweed. We have some plants here for free that you can have. If you run out, if too many people want some, I have all kinds of homes that I'll give you contacts. I can give you some. We give out seeds in the spring to plant, so you can buy some at the nurseries also. You can purchase seeds and start them up. Plant milkweed, plant swamp milkweed. They won't spread out in your gardens or your flower bed. And not only would it help the monarch, but you'll be at your place and you'll see monarchs coming. They will actually come because the monarch has to come at your place to lay eggs on it. Right? I've had a friend, I gave a lot of plants away, and everybody I gave plants to, they had monarchs. Some of them just a few, one monarch here, one monarch there, some a little more. But last year I gave 3 plants to a friend up about a mile up the street from where I am in Dieppe. And this year he called me, he forgot, I told him you might get monarchs there, right? And he called me, he had chrysalids all over the place. He had 48 chrysalids. Okay, it's beautiful. So for all kinds of reasons I was able to take some of those and put them in the house where, because his wife is quite sick, and they were able to observe
Does the milkweed like to
butterflies
grow in?
emerge from the chrysalids and release them at home. You'll have monarchs come to your place, you'll see the caterpillars, you'll see the chrysalids, and you'll see adults flying. Just wonderful for you, your kids and grandkids.
Do they prefer swamp milkweed to common, or?
If you have both, I don't think they prefer one or the other type of thing. But the common, having said that, the common milkweed, if you're not worried about it spreading, the leaves are bigger, so it's a lot more food. It's a lot more food than the same size swamp milkweed. But the monarch knows he'll lay their eggs where this guy only had 3 plants and he had 48 chrysalids that we found. Okay. All right. So that's it. There's a lot of stuff here. If you have any questions, avez des questions.
Now, when they're migrating, do they have the same stops all the time or not? Will they
Well,
stop anywhere?
that's a good question. Do they have, when they're migrating to Mexico, do they have the same stops? Generally, yes, in the sense that some people have their roofs, the trees, that they will roost at night in the trees, and some people, they're roosting in their yard. And every year, for 10 years, they're roosting in that yard. So
It's the same spot in Mexico every year.
but I'm sure that they will also roost in different places. But some people know that they're going to come and roost in those places. Why they do that? But they do.
Excuse me,
How do you, sorry,
it looks like there's monarchs in that parsley plant there.
No, that's one of my favorites also.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's the black swallowtail.
Oh, really?